Hi everyone. Um, Before I begin this talk, I want to tell you where I am. I'm actually lying down on a bench and I'm looking at the stars while I'm talking and recording this. And I've never, I guess, recorded a speech when I've been lying down, publicly. So I guess here it goes. What I would like to talk about is the search for knowledge and how close it can take our understanding to what the stars are. In other words, we have many different presences and ideas on how we can integrate our own experience with that which is outside of ourselves. But at some point, the internal and the external were one and the same, and they were at the same doorway. And we look at our fascination of our greatest imagination, and we see that the stars have something to do with it. Because what we are away from, what we're separate from, we tend to choose to not go towards. In other words, the distance we see between ourselves and our truth suggests how quickly we will become aware of our existence. So there is truth involved. There is the idea that you can look at the stars and with your own experience and sense of knowing, find this personal remembrance of having been there and having that experience. In other words, we are very connected. Our experience is not only alone. That which considers experience is a very unspeakable thing. And so we acknowledge it right now and very politely as collective intelligence. In other words, the situations we've been in, we've suddenly come out of, there was a collective intelligence involved. In other words, when people have an accident, that presence bubble is present to many other forms of consciousness. In other words, we have, for example, one consciousness we choose to segment. They're not segmented, but because we are deciding to live in a segmented world, and we're actually not. But collectively right now we're agreeing to a segmented world. In other words, similar to how Martin Luther King perhaps saw how white men were given different rights than black men, in his mind he found them to be equal. He found white man to be equal regardless of face, shape, and idea. And he also was involved with others who found that. And therefore we see that similarly now we are seeing the experience in any body equal to the same experiencer. All experience is equal to the same experiencer, so value the set of oneness you find in things. So in other words, don't idol worship, but don't think that there are not collective intelligences observing us, because we are our own separation. And so as I gaze here from these stars, in a sense, their alteration has to be consciously perceived. So is me perceiving these stars moving consciously? In other words, am I able to move the stars with moving my vision, moving my eyes, moving my awareness to what I see? And you see that it is the ideas that are present in your spotlight of consciousness that suggest who you are and who you believe to be this affirmity, who you believe to be the firmness of life. In other words, when you look at your story that is you, how firm are you for yourself? How real are you for yourself? And you see, because of the different, canvas of experiences we're going through, we tend to judge ourselves actually, because we know ourselves really well. And so we need to see that sometimes when we're judging ourselves, if it is compassionate and it's constructive, then it is from the heart. But sometimes we're judging people, we're judging ourselves, and it's not us, it's voices of our past. In other words, our past has voices that make our truths real now, and they're limited truths, A limited truth is me coming and telling you, you have to be the experience of only this one thing. If I told you, you had to be the experience of a rock, that rock on the ground, and you were limited to that, you would say, no, I know I'm not a rock. I'm a human being. Good. So similarly, if the human being was solidified, shaped, and made into a rock, what would be aware of it? So we need to be observant that our experience is being judged on one dimension of form, and that there are many dimensions of formless awareness to different types of form. In other words, we can experience ourselves in subtleties, in subtle I guess, atmospheres of consciousness that give us ideas of self that we never had before. You see, intelligence is present. We understand there are many minds here, but it is only those minds that have connected to their origin that we find profound. You see, the idea of creator and creation never had to be a bad idea, never had to be a enslaving idea. Creator and creation is how existence is made into a relationship for us to understand, but in a sense we don't need symbols. In other words, we don't need to bash the symbol with a hammer when the symbol is just earth. It's just some natural image. In other words, you can look at the word love and see infinite possibilities of whatever your experience is and can be. So similarly, when I think about my experience, I realize that there is an alteration to it as my consciousness shifts and my attention to self changes. In other words, my awareness to the idea of self changes as there is no ideas which I find myself resonating through in a sense. In other words, when you see emptiness in, let's say, a room, that's one stage, but it's because at times maybe you weren't aware of how full the room was. In other words, when I come and show you a completely full room, and the awareness to it is different, because sometimes when I show you an empty room, you'd notice a difference, right? So many people forget the difference. You forget your youth and you think you have to be youthful. No, it is simply that your attitude towards your life is a story that can be altered by your own choice. So if you can change, that means you are defining the boundaries of your existence, but you can see much more than that. So when I look at the stars, I know that there's an instantaneous presence. There is, on a physical level, a consideration that there is a cause and effect relationship, which is the light in my eyes. However, I also have this knowing experientially that based on collective observance, I become the moment that is observing, let's say, Mr.Within, Amin, or the moment that is observing me. That is a fascinating recognition of your own ability. That you're not just the bodies, you are the existing moment. You are the now, and there's no words but just experience based on an infinite capability. You see, we are choosing the shovels, or we're actually trying to find the best shovel on earth to dig for the treasure that becomes our freedom. But in a sense, the freedom is to get out of the sandbox. You know what I mean? So you choose how you get out of the sandbox. You choose how aware you are and alert you are to what life is. You choose the depth of the questions, you know? You choose if you're satisfied by a yes or no answer, or you want to go see where revelation ends. And it's always where it begins. Our minds need to be experienced more consciously and observantly and more capably, because once we observe our ability, we are able to present it. Once you have played the piano, your fingers are no stranger to the keyboard. And we need to incorporate our own unique depth, because you see, life gives you general views, and people talk about general stuff, but it is how much you've explored an idea that suggests how capable you are to communicate it. In other words, those who have experienced the greatest depths of silence become the greatest communicators of the noise, because they're always comfortable with the silence. In other words, in all those PowerPoint presentations you were a kid in school and you were nervous for, in any social incident you were nervous for, you were not aware of the nervous system that did not have to be dictated by a certain view. In other words, you did not have to be nervous, you did not have to care, because you would see that your life is much more than you believe it to be. Kids lose sight of that, and that's how they change. Your kid must always be grateful for why he's alive, and it's the parents' job to tell the kid, son, be grateful, for you are in life. This is your experience. Find out why you're here and pursue your ambition and passion. We need to find out where we are. And it is up to the harmonious people in life to help show us. Because you see, someone at a greater harmony may see you stuck in a lower harmony, and he will tell you, shake it off. Shake off the entertainment, the joy, the necessity for desire and getting the things you want. Get rid of the personality that made you into an idol. You are not an idol. You might have symbolic value, but your enormity is your own personal recognition of the vastness of your existence. And so when I see those stars, and when I see myself, and when I see every, let's say, alien extraterrestrial movie being a joke because it's not a material relationship, I find that a part of me wants to go on a peak where every human can see me and just shout, look at yourself and observe and appreciate the existence that you are, and do not be dictated by ideas you've held when your hands deserve to be free. And hopefully then a part of me at the same time, after saying every word, is like, no, language doesn't help it, but God may it lead to silence. So in other words, I speak to, in a sense, have my words take you into your own sense of silent and much needed observation of yourself and life. Because self and life don't need to be spelled differently. Experience and infinity don't need to be, and finity, and let's say, the finite, they don't need to be spoken differently. You choose how much of the glow of the stars you want to see. You choose if you consider that your eyes do not belong to starlight. You choose to see how much you can see. And if I had known this when I was earlier, I would have seen much more, to be honest with you, because you don't understand. It's like we're not aware of it, but our ideas do affect us because they get absorbed in a sense of identity. In other words, subconsciously, we may feel the influences of our environment that incorporates in our immediate conscious reality, And so you can only talk about it so much until it becomes a practice. Because you see, the greatest things that ideas inspire you is to act and get involved in your life a bit more. And what get involved means is, why should you get involved in the processes and the systems that are out there? And it's because you want to explore life. You're come here. Don't think if you have a routine job, it's a limitation. See it as how you can if you think about how you can make a world a better place, that is the best job to have. If someone asks you, what's your job? I don't know, man, I'm just here to make the world a better place, right? And that guy was actually contributing all his time to doing that. You would have so much respect for that guy. Because, goddamn, in a world where it is routine to be cruel, we need artists to be kind. We need artists to show nature. We need let's say, I'm not Native American, but every Native American kid who heard the stories of their ancestors to come and communicate that. We need healthy communication between humanity, and it begins with understanding that everyone can be unhealthy, everyone can suffer, everyone can be in the same situation we are, and so we need to respect all human beings. Because all human beings, regardless of how confident or how happy or whatever they show, we are moving towards our death. So people act satisfied, but they're like, damn it, I'm gonna die, you know? And death is not an idea which you should feel like it's forbidden to talk about. It's not taboo. It is your conception. You're not dead, so you don't have, you just have ideas on what you think your death would be. You have memories, you have images, but your images don't need to dictate how much you can experience here. The problem in the West, which, you know, even this is a problem talking about it, but is that it's not about, per se, freedom. You know, it's not, it's like, you know, you're free as a human being. It's not that you need to have freedom. It's not something to have. Freedom is the knowing that you are beyond whatever you think you are at your normal, you know? You are a greater standard because you have the vision of a greater view. Do you know? It's like, trust me, someone who's on the roof has a better view of what is going down on, let's say, the field. Your awareness to the condition, your moment of life is, and suggests how much nature's intelligence is communicating through you. Guys, have respect for your relationship with life, you know? Don't be so rude to yourself by saying that I can't have amazing moments and moments of great connectivity with all that is. You can, okay? And it's pretty easy. It's your own personal thing. And it's not worship. I mean, guys, I don't know why people would think that, listen, everything is a story, in a sense. And because everything is in a story, it's good to share stories, to discover new stories. So eventually, after discovering a lot of new stories of what we are, we'll see that regardless, there's a storyteller. And the storyteller's experience is greater than the story, right? So our exploration becomes one of self. In other words, we're exploring many things. And so, if you are being brought up anywhere, at any point of time, you are in a dynamic situation where you are recognizing differences which you can integrate. In other words, geniuses are said to blend two different things, to blend art and science. So, see the art in nature and blend it in with that which is concrete. In other words, see if there ever was a need to pave roads, to create cars that, you know, create a form of navigation that is unhealthy, perhaps, to the human being. You know, a sense of freedom comes when you see your multi-experiencing. What that means is that you're not just having an experience here. Similar to how I'm having an experience here, there are aspects of my presence that are experiencing from all vision, all imagery. In other words, you don't no longer look for truth in the imagery. You simply go and be. You go practice. You go in this state of vibration and to experience being. When you go to experience being, you realize your consciousness alters when you start listening to the communication that is coming. In other words, let's say if you this is a very amazing example I think I'm going to say. Let's say if you spoke English and let's say your friends spoke Italian and they wanted to help you suddenly, you know, but they only spoke Italian. But you only speak English, right? So you hear this stuff that you have no explanation for. You're like, gosh, my friend is saying something to me in Italian, but I can't understand it, so I don't know what the hell he's saying. It's like, no. You know what I mean? You are choosing to make their communication unknown to you by considering it separate from that which is you. If you begin every moment in recognizing you are the moment of wakefulness, you are whatever you're aware of, you realize at the same time you're not that if you're aware of it. Awareness is a fascinating and safe way to explore your consciousness anywhere, wherever. You don't need, in a sense, substances. You need the curiosity and the exciting audacity to move forward into uncovering who you are, you know? don't be afraid of judgment, because it'll bring your judgment day sooner. Freedom is already free, and to be it is simply to know that our answers are always communicating with us, and they sometimes give us questions to find greater answers. In other words, they add spice to our life. When you become when you become, in a sense, one with nature. If you, let's say, go live in a forest for, let's say, a couple months, you will become aware of your life differently, because you realize you're not that stressed. You have a simple. It becomes more real, you know. It's up to you to make life more real, when other ideas can also be real. In other words, you're choosing how much life is being natural for you. So don't make artificial decisions based on an artificial self, because, you know, there is no such thing as artificial intelligence. There is just the intelligence of creating spectrums of the same vision. There is the voice and the echo, regardless of how many echoes we find in our distant past and future. Our relationship with what we are is where we will end up in our next moment of our own understanding. So, let yourself be inspired by the natural world and discover in silence the harmonies that are around you, in silence and stillness, and in comfort. I mean, guys, it is not a sin to be comfortable. It is a sin to not be aware of what you're doing. That is pretty much it. Because what is a sin is something that is not good for you, because it's definitely throwing you towards hell. But why is there a hell? Why is there suddenly a random option of going into somewhere bad if you do something? No. Death is not an unconscious push based on a judgment system that is not our own. You create for example, let me tell you an influence. You create how you choose to say to the world, and you show. It's up to you to show how much something is real for you. In other words, a lot of ideas you believe are not real to you. They're just good ideas that you like. What is real to you is what you have experienced and what you know outside within that changeless awareness. You see, guys, how you are thinking about your life is based on what ideas of other people you have collected. And sometimes we have access to information, so we're like, free information, yes. Let's get all the information we can, right? And we get all the answers to our problems before the problem's getting there. And then we forget that why are we not going through the fire? Why are we not living life in our own sense of growth? Why do I need a school system or just any governing system to tell me these are the things you have to read? The only reason you have to become a specialist in something is because people want specifications. They want to find the next better person to help them become, more rich, right? Your richness doesn't have to be about grabbing to things immediately. You don't need to have an attachment of mind. You need to have a detachment. Because, you see, you could be a very meditative, calm person, but if someone comes here and triggers a behavior, an incident which happened in your past, you would react based on that. So, for example, if you got angry at someone calling you something, then someone else calling you that again, you have to see how observant you are to you reacting in a vicious way, You gotta see what images in your day-to-day life that you're seeing that is, I guess, amplifying good things around you or bad things. If you suddenly see life is getting bad, it's because your views believe it's getting bad. So there's something pulling you there that you're not aware of. So stop running for a second. To be free means to be in a state of being that is free. It's not just about reaching ideas that imply freedom. That's a tease. You don't want the end result of your life to have just been a tease, right? So people are like, all right, guys, take it slow with your decisions for a second and just think about them a bit longer and then progress. You see, it's sometimes the good answer is right there, but because you are stuck in this immediate response system with how society is manifest, it's your choice how you conduct your mentality. And this is important because I cannot believe people are talking about stress and depression to a point where it is believed to be it's a chain, guys, you put around your own neck, because you begin by considering yourself to be someone who is depressed. You identify. In other words, it's like one day you're just having a rough day, and when you get to the bottom of that roughness, let's say, for example, you just step in a puddle, you can choose to think that your life is the worst. I mean, I'm pretty sure there have been people in life who have stepped in puddles which they did not want to step in, and they were just like, gosh, I don't like my life. It's not about liking your life. It's about how you're communicating about your life openly. So the first problem of people being depressed or in stress is to talk about it, to give an image to their depression. If you shape your depression, trust me, you will see it often. So just be like, okay, there's something bothering me. Just start from there. Be like, something's bothering me, and then look at what it is. Because sometimes you're bothered not by external things, but by internal views which you have not thought about enough about yourself. In other words, you don't know yourself because you haven't looked at yourself calmly. You haven't just looked at yourself deeply enough. If someone says, would you like this, whatever they offer you, can you be observant enough to be like, no, that's not who I am, so I don't like this, for example, You can demonstrate strength in your choice. And what strength means is not to attack someone. No, it is to harmonize everything by being a presence of harmony. In other words, telling people that we are able to be the greatest beings that we can. Our consciousness can get heightened so that we emanate good qualities. And when I say emanate good qualities, because you need to consider some points of view about your life. And you need to see that your life is a view based on how you choose to see it. And you see it based on comparison and blending of imagery. But imagery at times activates these mental locks that people go through. In other words, a mental lock would actually be a scientist not being able to confront, for example, the truth of some other person's experience that comes from an Eastern philosophical background, In other words, the Buddhist is much more able to handle any situation life throws at him than, let's say, a person who is egotistical to keeping his image alive. In other words, a monk, for example, a Zen monk, is comfortable with the silence to the degree that they realize no words need to dictate their reality. That is why beings are attracted to a being that is clear. Because we all like a clear mirror. Because we see something in a human being which we know we want to see in ourselves. That is inspiration. And I have been inspired in my life, and I realized the greatest inspiration was the connection, you discovering and very experientially and unspeakably being these experiences of all that your imagination and your creative mind communicates to you. it is 100% fine and okay, and I give permission to anyone who thought they didn't have permission based on society standards, that you can view yourself in infinite views. You can have freedom of thought. You can have freedom of communication. You can have freedom of being. You can have freedom of understanding. You can have freedom of creation. You can have a very creative ability in how you handle things in your life. At times, we find ourselves rejected by the embrace of others because we assume it to be as warm as ours. And we think life is attracting negativity to us because people don't understand how to have a good experience. I mean, it's like you don't have conscious control over your state of being because you think the things that are external are affecting it. In other words, you have not looked too closely at what quantum physics implies about reality. And you have not, I guess in a sense, this is my suggestion by the way, perceived different angles of life within the same sphere. And life pushes us, and life throws emotions at us, and we realize we're living other people's lives because their ideas have affected us. And it's fine, but when we think about the end of ends, there is no thought that travels into that eternity. It is an awareness to thought that is eternal in its intelligence. Because I know that my awareness to this block of wood is just one person's awareness to how something exists. And similar to galleries of art, Leonardo da Vinci did not just create one painting. He created the infinities that is every other person looking at his artwork. Every person looking, even me looking at the Mona Lisa is another creative artwork of his. Because we realize the greatest things we can give to one another is the allowance to be free to be, And it is important to, I guess, let ourselves be our own greater freedom. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Thank you for listening. Much blessings.